Everything is clear now. Okay. I am Asanendu Mondal, now speaking from Kolkata, India. The time here is evening 8:30. So a very good evening to all of you who are present here. So my topic is adsorptive removal of toxic phenol from industrial wastewater using low-cost adsorbents. So the title itself is talking about that how we should remove the toxic phenol from wastewater so that the pollution can be reduced from the wastewater aspects. Before I start my presentation, just let me tell you the background of taking this research. I am basically an upstream person, oil and gas person. I had spent more than 34 years in a company called ONGC, that is a national oil company in India, operating for mostly oil and gas upstream, but also has refinery, petrochemicals, and many other value chain products also. So when I was working, I had understood that a lot of pollutants do get mixed along with the wastewater being coming out from many industries, not only from oil and gas, from coal industries, from petrochemical. So many different types of pollutants are there. I have chosen phenol because it is mostly related to coal and you can say energy sector. And that's why this particular pollutant has been studied by me. And I have utilized a lot of adsorbents to see that whether the expenditure can be minimized and the circular economy also can be generated, especially for the third scale or the small scale industries in the many countries, mostly the, you can say, developing countries. So, okay, so what I'll do, I'll just introduce about the phenol. I'll go quickly because within 20 minutes I'll finish it. I'll go the details of the presentation as well as the study, starting with objective, methods, results and discussion, and conclusion. Phenol is a derivative of benzene. It's soluble in water and acidic in nature. It is colorless, hygroscopic, crystalline substance which turns pink in air owing to its oxidation. It is produced from cumin process because it is required very much for the construction purposes. But when it is being produced as a byproduct from many chemical industries, then it becomes a headache because it's a pollutant. Many companies who are discharging phenol in their wastewater, like refineries up to 500 ppm, coal processing 6,800, coking 3,900, and petrochemicals 1,220. Otherwise, leather and paints also do discharge phenol in their wastewater. Other than industrial wastewater, it is also available in domestic and agricultural runoff because of use of insecticides or pesticides. Phenol is mainly declared as pollutant because of its toxicity, which creates a lot of diseases, as well as it spoils the soil and germination and groundwater. So the maximum limit prescribed by EPA is only 1 ppm, and for potable water it is 0.001 as prescribed by WHO. There are many procedures available. They are physical, chemical, and biological. But what we had chosen, that is adsorption, because adsorption is the cheapest and most popular in recent times. The adsorption means it's a process that occurs when a gas or liquid solid accumulates on the surface of a solid or liquid. This is basically surface phenomena, so that the phenol molecules will get adsorbed on the solid surface. It can be physically or chemically. Physically, it's very simple. I mean, just because of the diffusion, it will happen and very low energy will be required. But for chemically, mainly the chemical bonds or the valence bonds will be taken place. So it will be irreversible, whereas the physical will be reversible. This is a picture where you can see that mostly the physical adsorptions are multi-layer, but chemical adsorptions are monolayer. Now, the study objective is basically we'll be utilizing 8 adsorbents. They are all very low cost as well as naturally available, or we can say even industrially available, but easily available across the world, like guava tree bark, rice husk, neem leaves, activated carbon from coconut coir, rice husk ash, red mud, clarified sludge from basic oxygen furnace, and activated alumina. So all these 8 adsorbents will be studied in our adsorption process to remove phenol from wastewater. First, we will do the characterization. We will do SEM, XRD, FTR, and BET. These characterizations will help us to know the physical characteristics of the adsorbent, and from there also we can conclude whether the adsorption can really take place to certain extent or not. Then we'll go for the experimental part, where we'll take very different variations of the process parameters, which are usually easily maintainable in any industry, like initial pH, contact time, adsorbent dose, temperature, and initial phenol concentration. These process variables are selected because if we change them and see the adsorption capacity, we'll find that there will be a moment when the adsorption will be maximum. So we will have to see the optimized phenol removal or the maximization of phenol removal under which condition. Then after getting those results, we will have kinetic study, isotherm study, thermodynamic study. These are all relevant to adsorption, to know that adsorption mechanism, how it is behaving during the adsorption process. Another important thing, this is a novel method we have adopted, that is the utilization of artificial intelligence, that is ANN modeling. And in this case, we will be able to basically incorporate our data for our study for any locations or any eventuality when the process conditions will not be known, or the initial wastewater phenol concentration will not be known. So that time, whether it can be utilized or not, that study can be made very quickly through this ANN modeling. We'll go for scale-up design so that the reactor size can be designed, how much adsorbent will be required. Then we'll go for regeneration. Although all these adsorbents are very easily available, even then we'll go for the study for regeneration. We'll take even the industrial wastewater also really taken from industry to verify whether our experimental data with the synthetic phenol solutions will be okay for real industrial wastewater study or not. And finally, the safe disposals, because we should not spoil the phenol adsorbents to be spread here and there, and again creating the pollution in the atmosphere. So these are all how to prepare the adsorbent. We will not go into details. Basically, this is the guava tree bark, and we will take from the tree and powder it after washing, and then we will take it. Similarly, we will take the rice husk from the rice mill. We will take neem leaves and we'll make it dried and powder it, and again we'll utilize for our adsorption purpose. We'll take the coconut coir. As such, we will not use it, the powder coconut coir. We will make it activated by putting it into the furnace at 800 degrees centigrade for 1 hour, and that powder will be taken for our adsorption purpose. We'll utilize the rice husk ash also. It is just simply by burning the rice husk, we'll get it, because we know that rice husk can be utilized by many household as a fuel or the for heating purposes. So that ash can be utilized for our adsorption purposes also. We can utilize the red mud, which is available from the alumina or the bauxite plant. We can utilize the clarified sludge from the basic oxygen furnace, that is the steel plants, and we can utilize the activated alumina, which is can be available readily from the market as synthetic activated alumina. So after getting all these adsorbents, then we'll go for the adsorbent preparation or the phenol solution preparation. For that, we'll take the phenol from the market, and that phenol will be dissolved in 1,000 liter of water to make it 1,000 ppm. 1 gram of phenol will be taken, and after adsorption, whatever is the balance phenol percentage or concentration, that can be measured through the UV spectrophotometer, because that will give some absorbance result, and that absorbance is related with the phenol concentration. And we will utilize the pH variation also, and that pH will be measured to the pH meter. This is the experimental steps, basically, we can say. First, we will be taking the adsorbent, then the quantum will be measured to the balance, and that will be mixed along with the phenol solution, and we can make it acidic, or the pH can be varied by NaOH or HCl, and then we'll put it in a mechanical shaker where the mixing will take place for a certain time. The time variation will be 30 to 600 minutes depending on the adsorbent and its adsorbent characteristics, and the temperature will be normally what we can get in the ambient, that is 25 to 50 degrees centigrade. Then we will filter it, and that filtered will be analyzed for residual phenol concentration, and then we will study it. So this is the batch parameters. You can say the phenol concentration will vary from 5 to 500 ppm. pH will vary up to 2 to 12. Dosage as per the requirement. Contact time as per the maximum adsorption timings required for that particular adsorption procedure. Along with that concentration, it can go up to 600 minutes. And temperature, as I said, from 25 to 50 degrees centigrade. Two calculations will be required for analyzing our data. That is percentage of phenol removed. So for that, we should know the initial phenol percentage and the final phenol percentage. So if we subtract them and divide by the initial and with the multiplied by 100, we'll get the removal of phenol percentage. Another is the adsorption capacity. That is how much of the phenol can be adsorbed by how much quantity of adsorbent. So it will be milligram per gram. And this is the calibration curve. That is what I was talking about, how to measure the phenol, residual phenol percentage through the UV spectrophotometer. Now the results, first if we go for SEM, that is spectrophotometer analysis, then we will get the topography. It basically will help us to know how what sort of porosity is there. It may be micro, meso or macro pores, but we are finding that every adsorbent has got a lot of pores in that, which will be helpful for adsorption. And if we go for XRD, we will find that they are all polycrystalline. We can get their data compared with the JCPDS also. And from there, we have found that as they are more or less all are crystalline, so the surface area will be helpful for getting more and more adsorption. And if we go for FTIR, these pictures are not very clear basically, because we have taken all the pictures on the same slide. So, but if you see that these are all standard FTIR plots, from there we can find out the functional groups which are correlated with that particular adsorbent. And these are the functional groups, mostly alkyl halide, methane, or the organic, you can say, and some nitrogenous oxides and hydroxides will be there. They are mainly the functional group which will take part for chemical adsorption. And if we go for the physical properties of adsorbents other than those characteristics, we'll get the bulk density, surface area through BET method, effective particle size through MES methodology, and the point of zero charge. This is very important because at this particular pH value, we'll get that the surface of the adsorbent is neutral. So as the phenol or phenolate ion is the negative, so only in case of positively charged surface parameter, then only the adsorption will be maximized. So we'll come to know at which pH the maximum adsorption will take place. So this will be the indication for that point of zero charge. Now we have got the experimental data. This is with respect to pH. You see, for all the adsorbents, we have taken the pH measurements along with different concentration, and everywhere the values are more or less similar. That initially it will be low, then at a particular pH it will be maximum, and then again it will be coming down. And this is because, as I said, the point of zero charge takes place, important role for this. And these are the value basically at which pH the maximum adsorption will take place. Now, similarly, the contact time, of course, we know that initially there is no contact with the phenol. So initially they will be 0, and then it will be started, and gradually it will increase till it becomes equilibrium. So more or less, equilibrium will take place at a higher percentage, maybe even 98% of the time. And we have taken even after the equilibrium certain time also to confirm that yes, it becomes constant after that. And adsorbent dose, you know, initially, of course, the adsorbent dose is fresh. So that's why the initial concentration adsorption will be very high. And later on, it will be again, will be either stagnant or it will gradually go down. That is because if we utilize more and more adsorbent in a single reactor, then definitely there will be agglomeration. So the surface area will go down further. So that's why initially we will go it very fast, and then it may either remain stable or slightly go down. With temperature, it basically because of endothermic or exothermic nature, and that's why sometimes we'll find that with temperature it will increase, and sometimes with certain adsorbent we'll find that it will be decreasing. And for initial phenol concentration, of course, you can see the similar nature for all. The reason is that at higher phenol concentration, the total adsorption sites are inadequate, and that's why the phenol adsorption will be reduced at higher percentage, and that is what we are getting through the experiment also. So in this chart or in this table, we can find out what is the maximum removal we can get. For guava tree bark, under certain conditions, we can go up to 90.67%. Rice husk 94.74, neem leaves 97.50, activated carbon 95.20, rice husk ash 93.33, red mud 97.5, clarified sludge 63, and activated alumina 21.80. So the maximum we can find for neem leaves, and that's why we have gone for even the fixed weight study also using the neem leaf. Now we'll go for kinetic study. Kinetic study means with time how the adsorption has taken place. So the QT and P is the relation, and we have taken pseudo first order, we have taken the pseudo second order. We are not going to the details of these calculations. We are simply giving the results here. Maximum R-square value will tell you that these data, the experimental data, which will be related or followed by that particular kinetic reaction. So here we can find that only red mud supports pseudo first order. Otherwise, all other adsorbents will follow the second order. That means they are homogeneous and physical, chemical. Heterogeneous and chemical. Only red mud will be physical and homogeneous. Now we have taken another few models also to know the mechanism of adsorption, like film diffusion, whether it can take place or not. We have taken the Reichenbach model, and we have found that R-square value is all above 0.8. So we can say that film diffusion has taken place for all the adsorbents. Thick model that has been characterized for individual adsorption timings. Basically, this is for film diffusion, this is for interparticular diffusion. So we can find out for each adsorbent how much times are involved, and in that way the rate determining factor also can be derived for each adsorbent. And LOH model, it is for chemical adsorption, and here also we have found that R-square value is above 0.8. So all adsorbents are okay for chemical adsorption. And this is another, that is Furuso and Smith model. This will give you the value of beta, that is mass transfer coefficient, and that value has dictated that the phenol moves faster from bulk to solid state. So they are all these experimental data as well as the mechanism data conveys that adsorption is very faster and useful. And Boyd model, it is also talking about the effective diffusion coefficient and the R-square value. They are all ultimately directing that they are chemical adsorption. Then we have gone for isotherm model, also taking the equilibrium value at each temperature with the change of the initial phenol concentration. We have taken the Langmuir model, we have taken Friend-Luce model, we have taken Temkin model, we have taken DR model. 4 models we have taken, and in we have summarized their data, and we found that Friend-Luce isotherm model was best supportive for guava tree bark, rice husk, neem leaves, activated carbon, red mud, and activated alumina. So mostly we can say the Friend-Luce model. Only the rice husk ash is Langmuir model, and for clarified sludge it is DR model. And another important data we are getting, that is the maximum adsorption capacity, that is milligram per gram through Langmuir, and where you can see that 44, 50, 74, they are all good adsorption capacity data for all the adsorbent. And when we compare with other literature with many other adsorbents, we find that they are more or less comparable. And we have done the thermodynamic study also for knowing whether the reactions are spontaneous or exothermic or endothermic and random or not. For that, the delta G, delta H, and delta S, that is entropy, enthalpy, and Gibbs free energy has been calculated from our experimental data. And these are the data what we have got. That delta G we have got negative almost for all cases except the red mud, but at higher temperature it is again negative. So we can say that all the adsorbents are okay for spontaneous reaction, and delta H is talking about endothermic for rice husk gas, red mud, clarified sludge, and delta S, that is random, is for rice husk gas, red mud, clarified sludge. So all the adsorption mechanisms are evaluated through thermodynamic study, and the ANN modeling, that is what I was talking about, by using the artificial intelligence data or the artificial neural networks. This is we have taken the 3-layer study through the MATLAB, and it has got a lot of advantages and disadvantages, but main thing is it is useful for both linear and non-linear. We have summarized all our data, that is for all adsorbents 1 to 8, and all their data. We have got total 813 data, And two important models we utilized, LM and SCG, that is scale conjugate gradient. They are very popular model for ANN. We have taken even two transfer functions also to have the both backward and forward propagation. And we have found that when the stopping criteria is existing for both the models, and we found that LM model is better because it has got the stopping criteria before 1000 repetitions. And this is the summarized data, and from this summarized data we can conclude that LM algorithm signified transfer function T2 is the best fitting one on the basis of minimum MSE value for first cross validation. And after getting this model also, again we have taken various cross validation with the experimental data. We find that they are more or less matching with what we have got to the experiment. So that's why you can say that ANN modeling is very much effective with our experiments. Then scale-up design to calculate the quantum of adsorbents. We have taken the equilibrium value from the best isotherm data. In many of the cases, as I said, that Friend-Lewis has been taken, and in two cases we have taken the other two isotherm, and from that QU value has been obtained, and then we have calculated how much adsorbent will be utilized or required for removal of the phenol to the desired concentration with the 80% adsorption capacity. Then regeneration has been taken by two procedures, one by distilled water simply, another by 30% ethanol solutions. And we have found the data. If we have taken the fresh, this is the percentage. But if you have taken distilled water and ethanol, then these are the data. We are finding that regenerations are possible, but it will not be matching with the fresh. So we can go up to second cycle if required. But as I said, the regeneration is not desired. The reason is all these adsorptions are easily available and plentifully available at low cost. Then if we have taken the real industrial wastewater, so that's why we have taken from one steel plant in West Bengal, and that percentage has been calculated. We have seen that phenol concentration was 195 and pH was 8.2. So that has been basically compared with our experimental data. So we have the simulated water, that is with our phenol concentration, and this is the industrial wastewater. And we have found that more or less the phenol removal percentage is similar. You see, for Goa Tree Park, it is 90 and 88. For Rice 94 and 91. For neem leaf, 97 and 92. More or less, they are all similar what we have got in our experiment in the laboratory. But only thing is they are little less. The reason is we have got some other pollutant also along with phenol in the industrial wastewater like cyanide, amide, etc. The safe disposal, this is the final requirement, because if we are to utilize our adsorbent for commercial purposes, then we should know how to dispose them safely. So what we have done, we have basically incinerate them at above 800 degrees centigrade, and that as we had mixed with water and found that no more phenol is there. So simply incineration can take place or can remove the phenol from the adsorbent. But another good thing we have done basically to experiment that whether that ash can be utilized for brick manufacturing along with other components. Yet we found that these ashes also can be mixed with the other components for brick manufacturing. And as the brick manufacturing needs 1000 degrees centigrade, so we need not to heat for 800 centigrade separately. So no cost will be required for its incineration. So directly this phenol adsorbed adsorbent can be utilized for brick manufacturing. So finally, we can conclude that all these adsorbents, the 8 adsorbents, will be very much useful for our purposes. And the final we can say, as we got through regeneration, the real industrial wastewater experiment also, so they can be utilized for many small and medium scale industry who cannot afford the other procedure because of the expenditure. They can now go for this particular adsorption procedure. These are the papers which we had published. Thank you.